much and welcome to the Mentorssori podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Pamela Tseu Atkinson, and I am a fellow educator. But I am here and wanting to be on this podcast to help spread the news about classroom management and helping kids succeed better. I live in the States. I live in the state of Utah. I have a daughter, and I'm a grandma of two grandbabies, and I actually teach drama and tech theater right now. Can you imagine that I get paid for that?
This is
It's great to be here.
fantastic. Thank
Thanks.
you so much. So, my first question will be to you, what inspired you to start on your journey as an educator?
Okay, many, many years ago, that's a great question because it always goes back to when I was a child. I used to play teacher. I just always loved doing it. I've taught in so many different realms. I've taught in the performing arts, and I've taught in schools and CPR and first aid and in church. Just teaching and helping people grasp onto and be inspired by knowledge is really inspiring to me.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, we all somehow when we get into that journey, there's something that triggers it within us life when we feel like, oh, this is it. This is the journey I want to take. My second question to you would be: could you share an experience in your teaching career that profoundly influenced your approach to classroom management and and student behavior?
You know, with a career as long as ours, it's hard to pinpoint that moment when you said, I've got to do something and make this better. Always about the gradual steps towards knowing that it could be different, and then the confidence to be a part of that change, right? And so I cannot answer honestly for there to be a one profound incident, just a career full of continuing to hope and wanting change myself, talking to other teachers, even talking in the lunchroom and things like that, is just how discouraged we can get, and we got to think of something better. And even talking to the students, I always talk to students. I've done a lot of research in what makes people want to do what they want to do. That's why we call it behavior motivation and not behavior modification. We're not about changing things. We're about creating change prior to the mistakes happening, because that's the best way to help our students, right? And so to answer your question, it's just really you can't be one profound thing. I've had leaps and bounds, such as I thought that I had a really, really wonderful point system. And I was ready to go out and teach about this point system. And then I just did more research and found that that is just exactly the same. It's just focusing on the rewards and punishments, which I think we're going to talk about later, but that is very reactive. And then I wanted to veer away from that and go back to the motivation. What makes people, especially children, in this case with classrooms, want to do better, want to behave so that they can ultimately learn, right? And so, and this is behavior motivation anywhere, because I have my first degree in psychology, and um, wanting to understand what makes people tick. And this is not only in the school systems, it's we work with parents. What makes a child want to eat broccoli? How do we get our child to eat broccoli? It's in the workplace. How do we get more out of our workforce, out of the people that work for us? This is human, basic human motivation and understanding what makes people tick.
Well, thank you so much, because it's true. It has to be inspirational for the child or for the students so that they can be motivated. If it's purely from the standpoint of learning for learning, but there's no true interest, then that becomes a chore, I
Right.
think.
Right.
So that's a very interesting perspective. Um, so let's look at the third question. So,
Yeah.
what motivated you to explore the concept that rewards and punishments may not be effective in the classroom setting? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but can you elaborate a little bit more,
Okay.
please?
I would love to. And I ruffle a lot of feathers with this, right? Because as I work with educators, I get a lot of pushback because, first of all, they say, well, when you get a job. when you get a job, you get paid for it. So there's nothing wrong with rewards and punishment. However, I counter that with human nature, right? So I ask us as educators, well, okay, so we want the paycheck, but let's put ourselves in the true motivation position. If we had a toxic work environment or a place that we didn't want to work, would our paycheck keep us there? It would not. It's not all about rewards, and it's certainly not about punishments, right? And that's not what motivates us to do better. And that's the key, is that I found that not only does it not work in that case, and when I ask students, it's like, so for example, I work, um, I have worked with teachers in schools where we have this elaborate reward system where they get to earn uh, points, and they get to go to an assembly at the end of the term, so they're gaining tickets and everything. And if we really, really, really want to know if it works, we ask the students, right? Will this ticket, will going to that assembly motivate you to change your behavior? Or are you going to study because you like studying anyway? Are you good? Does it make you do something different? If you're like, okay, I really want to cut class, but if I can get that ticket, I'm going to not. Is it what really motivates the students? And it's not. So that's that, right? I mean, research shows, we've done studies, it's just not what matters to them. For some students it's great to have, but is it the root motivator? And it never is. Secondly, it's very unfair, because you also ask the students, raise your hand if you think you should have earned that as well. But the teacher picked those 3 students. You were doing the right thing. Should you have gotten that as well? Absolutely. There's unfairness. And I was talking to a principal once where he said, well, I tell my teachers then to keep track. I've given these 3 students rewards. I'm going to keep track of all the rewards that I have given out. I mean, and then like, what are we asking our educators? It's just like, to keep track of that. It's just too hard to keep track of all of that stuff. And there are all kinds of wonderful things that are out there for this purpose. It's more work for us. So that is exactly why I thought, well, what is it like if we go back to finding the true motivator, then it gets easier and it's more effective. And that's where we came up with the 7 tools, and the 7 tools of what motivates people to do the right thing.